to another edition of Ask the Betrayed. I'm Sharon,
And I'm Rae.
and we are here to talk about unexpected triggers,
Mm,
things that happen in the course of normal life that may blow you away,
hmm
and how to be prepared
mm,
for things like that. As we were thinking about this topic for today, the very first thing that came to mind for me was weddings
mm,
and how triggering weddings are in early recovery. But I'm going to say that they might always trigger a part of you that grieves what you thought you had,
mhm,
what you wanted in life. I can say for me personally, I've always cried at weddings. So if I cry at a wedding, it's not anything that anybody's going to be shocked at, but I can feel the joy on the other side of this journey. I can feel the joy for the people and also the joy that I have the marriage that I want, that James and I have worked so hard to create.
mhm,
So, weddings.
mhm.
Do you talk about a kit for people to carry? Because I do. I say, okay, so what size purse are you going to carry?
Nice.
And what all can we put in that purse that can help you stand up to whatever feelings are going to come your way? I'm a big fan of Rescue Remedy, lavender oil.
hmm
Just put a little essential oil and sniff it. Take some nice deep breaths. Maybe a little tiny list of somatic can be helpful. So, reminding yourself to give yourself a hug, doing some tapping, taking some nice deep breaths. If you have been prescribed medication for emergency events, then take it with you.
hmm
There's no shame in that game because your ability to regulate your nervous system will get better over time if you work on it.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, sometimes we need mother's little helper.
I remember you were the one I first heard refer to pharmacological support as the tow truck that gets you out of the ditch sometimes, right? Like gets you back onto level ground enough that you can engage all of your other resources to move forward in the healthiest way possible. But sometimes you need something to help you out of the ditch.
Yes. I think one of the most important, I'm in a situation where my nervous system is activated and I don't know what to do, is to have an exit strategy.
Hmm.
If the exit strategy is a temporary exit, like, oh, pardon me, I need to go to the restroom, like, come on, girls. Nobody's going to follow you into the bathroom. Nobody's going to think anything. Go to the bathroom anytime you need to interrupt something that's happening.
Mhm.
Have Uber on your phone
Mhm.
in case you want to exit in that way. Know where the exits are when you are in a church or whatever, and perhaps put your favorite prayer or Bible verse or quote or saying, mantra. Sarah Morales, a wonderful colleague of ours, talks about a comeback statement.
Yeah.
And I just love that. My comeback statement for me was, you've got this. Whatever was happening, you've got this. Did you have a comeback statement?
I did. I think I called mine anchor statements, something short enough that I could grasp it when I wasn't at my best. So one of mine was the only way out is through, meaning I can get to the other side of this thing, but I can't get to the other side of this thing if I give up and shut down. So I
Mhm.
keep moving to get through this thing. Another one of mine was I can do this thing with dignity.
Mm.
Whatever it took, I could find it within myself to navigate through it with my head held high, no matter how those shame gremlins or self-consciousness or self-doubt might be yapping at my heels, I could get through that. One of my favorites, kind of those internal resources, but also external resources, is I had little stones with words etched on them that I could carry in my pocket. So they had some texture so that it was something that I could touch, or a piece of jewelry, like a pendant that belonged to one of my grandmothers that really represented maternal and feminine strength for me. I would wear something like that that had significance of a nostalgic nature. So, absolutely, things that represent what we need to hold on to in those moments.
So that we can hold on to ourselves.
Yeah.
So feel good in what you wear.
Hmm.
Dress for power. I often wear red when I just happen to be wearing red today, but I will wear red if I feel like I'm gonna have a tough day and I need a little color boost, bright colors, maybe something silly like socks that people can't see that have wonderful sayings on them. I remember that Christmas that you gifted me with all of the outrageous socks. And so often during intensives, I would have them on and no one would know.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember once reading a story about a woman who wore Wonder Woman underwear. And it was one of those little secrets between her, herself, and herself that she could just, no matter what was going on, whatever the world could see of her on the outside, she knew that inside there was a lot more going on. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What other surprising or unexpected triggers, things that happen in normal life that you might need to know about in order to be prepared for?
So I'll tell you one of my favorites was media.
Mm.
Always. Like I never had to look further than headlines or social media or the latest blockbuster movie or TV show to find something that triggered a memory or a fear or a hope or something that would tap into an emotional volcano in me. So like seriously, one of my very practical little tricks was I got a second remote control. Okay, because then I was no longer dependent on my partner to decide to fast forward something or to stop something or to switch the channel or to whatever. I had that control in my hand. Now, he also had his, so he could take that same intervention action on his and our behalf, but I didn't have to wait around or ask or expect him to do that. So that was a big one for me.
Oh, that was good.
There
You
was
know,
also a time when I took the batteries out of the remote control and I used it when my mind started going off in a direction I didn't want to go, and I would just push pause or stop on the empty remote control. It wasn't actually connected to anything, but it was an action I could take. Pressing that button felt powerful, and it was my way of talking back to the trauma of that trigger.
nice, nice. I think a trigger that I was not expecting was pretty early on, and I can't remember why we were going to be in the car together, but for some reason we were in the car together. And that limited space, the energy in the car was really, really hard. And I made the decision that day, I'm not going to do that to myself again.
Mhm,
And I will meet you. And I want to say that for years,
mhm,
I knew I had the choice about whether I was going to ride in the car or not.
mhm.
It also helps with the back end of always have an exit strategy.
Yeah, and really, what I think of this is setting ourselves up for success. What gives us the best possible chance of navigating through something in the healthiest possible or healthiest way that's within reach?
I'm looking for my spray. There are aromatherapy sprays that you can get. There's one on Etsy and it's called Vampire Spray.
You gave me that.
Oh, Body and Space Mist.
Yeah.
Uh, I
I'm
don't
sorry. I interrupted you though.
look around for different combinations of aromatherapy that you can spray on yourself to give you that added. energetic boost to be yourself, because that's ultimately what we want for you, is to always be able to be yourself in every situation.
And in that vibe, I'm actually going to take a slightly different approach to the dress approach because for me, I know I have my best chance at success when I'm comfortable in my own skin. And for me, being physically comfortable is really important. It allows me to be emotionally present in ways that I just wouldn't if I was wearing something that was uncomfortable. So in those situations, I'll typically dress for comfort, and that includes things like temperature regulation. When I am having a trauma response, I am either ice cold or raging hot. Like I have a very hard time regulating my bodily temperature. So dressing in layers is one of those ways that is a really constructive intervention.
Gold. That is gold.
Talking and thinking about things that come up unexpectedly, I remember being shocked. Now, I'm not a parent myself, but I remember being very surprised at how strongly most survivors react to Mother's Day and Father's Day. I remember being surprised that they seem to carry more impact than things like Valentine's Day or anniversaries. We could have a whole episode talking about anniversaries. So tell me, as a mom and as someone who watches other parents navigate through these holidays that are socially spotlit, meaning there's like this big bright neon sign saying this is what parents should be, this is what parents should look like, these are the attitudes we should feel about ourselves and other people in parenting roles. Talk about that one a little bit.
So it's that shoulding, right? It's that idea that life is perfect and we're going to celebrate mom. Well, mom doesn't feel very celebrated right now, because you would hope that the person who really, really is anchoring you in that motherhood is the person you had children with. When that person was the one that betrayed you, it really affects how you see these holidays and how you feel about them. For me, Mother's Day was tainted by the fact that I didn't know where my husband was. He said that he'd run to the mall. 4 hours later, he shows up with something from the mall for Mother's Day. And I remember saying, I'm not your mother, sassy, right? But also recognizing that he'd been with his affair partner.
Mhm.
And so for years and years and years, Mother's Day was tainted by that. Like, this is a family time, and our idea of family gets tainted because the person that you created this family with has not held up their end of the deal. This Mother's Day, I found out that I'm going to be a grandmother. So Mother's Day has been eternally redeemed for me. So that's so exciting. For Father's Day, I think wives work really hard to celebrate other people.
Mm.
When you feel like you not only have not been celebrated, but have been devalued and humiliated in the way that sexual betrayal does, it's very, very hard to find the wherewithal to pitch into that.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of our partners saying, hey, Father's Day's coming up, and you should do whatever you want with our children. And I'll be waving from the sidelines, or I am going away for the weekend, or I'm going to join you at this particular junction of the day and not for the entire day. I think knowing that you have choices, knowing that you don't have to do what you traditionally thought should be done, I think that that is really helpful. For a long time, Mother's Day was the day that we went to the zoo. I knew that my kids loved being at the zoo. I loved being at the zoo. And so it reframed it, it changed it up.
Mhm.
So finding ways to cope.
Yeah. I hear so much of that comeback statement vibe in the stories that you're sharing about how you brought different balance and different equilibrium and different meaning and messaging to those days on the calendar.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
congratulations for grandbaby on the way.
Thank you. It's the job I've been waiting for my whole life.
Hmm.
Yesterday in men's group, I asked them, hey, what are some situations that triggered your wives that you weren't expecting?
Nice.
And they gave me a few interesting things: geographic places, hotels, restaurants, cities, countries. All of those places can create distress for a betrayed partner. And so having that awareness, being able to feel like if somebody says, hey, let's go to San Francisco, and you know that something happened in San Francisco, if you feel that in your belly, like, oh, then respond to it. San Francisco might not be a great idea this year. Perhaps we go blah, blah, blah. One of the interesting ones that one of them said was platitudes. And I thought that that was so great. When people offer you platitudes, how triggering that can be. Everything's going to be all right.
Right.
There's a silver lining. Any platitude that you can think of. I remember my friends would call and say, how are you? And I would be like, don't ask me that. And really, like, my friends loved me. They wanted to help, right? But how do you think I'm doing? So I had to really sort of dig deep and say, how can I answer this honestly? I didn't want to say I was fine. I didn't want to say that I was okay. And so I would do a little check in about how I felt in that moment. And I would say, right now, I am feeling blah, blah, blah. Yesterday, I felt blah, blah, blah. But platitudes, you know, as a society, we're not really good at grief.
Hmm.
We're getting better, but we're not good at grief. And people don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And so if you can have some grace, knowing that when people offer you platitudes, even though it hits you like a wet fish in the face, having some grace about this person, really not knowing, like this is above their pay grade,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and being able to answer in some way that honors yourself and also doesn't tear the person down.
I love this. So this is where the fact that you were a therapist before betrayal comes through loud and clear because you had the awareness and the wherewithal to tap into those emotions in that moment. I didn't. My first career was graphic design. So I showed up at a fast-paced ad agency every day in the midst of my trauma, and people said, "How are you?" And the best I could muster was, "Good morning." Right? Like seriously, because I decided to reframe it as it was a greeting.
Hmm.
Most of the people in my office were not close friends who actually really cared about what was going on with me. It was just how they said hello and good morning. So I just responded to that greeting in that way and opted out completely from any conversation about my emotional state of being with people who didn't really need or deserve to hear it.
Brilliant.
That was
Brilliant.
also the office wherein one of my favorite therapists taught me to look myself in the mirror in the bathroom and say to myself, you can scream, you can swear, you can have a mother frickin' meltdown when you get home. You just can't do it here at work. And I was so grateful because to me, I practiced something different than telling myself I shouldn't feel that way. And I practiced something different than just shutting it down without any intention or promise to return to it. It
Mhm.
was like I was giving my little girl self a pep talk. Here's how we do this, kind of a pep talk, and saying your feelings matter, and we will give them the time and the energy and attention they deserve when it is a good, appropriate environment to do so. And that's not at work.
Wowzer. That's so great. I know that we have talked about how the anger that a betrayed partner feels is really overwhelming. And as women, sorry guys, this is really about women, we are taught as little girls not to get angry, right? Anger is not okay for women and it's not okay for little girls. So when we find ourselves in this place where anger is really appropriate, we don't always know how to express it appropriately. I was a very, very good example of that.
Hmm.
Burning underwear. Anyway, learning how to do it appropriately is such a great thing. Acknowledging the feeling, validating the feeling, reassuring. We'll get to it. Speaking of anger, what are some of your favorite ways to dispel that angry energy that gets in your body that you've got to get out?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think of it as discharging toxicity, detoxing that from within myself. So, at its most simple, when I don't even have cognitive capacity to do or think anything else, I stomp my feet. Right? It's very organic. It's very intuitive. It's very childlike. And when I do have the brain power to pay attention and be mindful of what I'm doing, I think of sending all of that intense energy into the earth, which can obviously handle it, right? I'm not hurting anybody or anything by doing that. That's always been a guideline that has helped me feel safe expressing my anger is if I am not damaging somebody or something, then I feel like I am doing it in a self-aware and responsible way.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to add a little note to that. Make sure that you're doing it bilaterally. That's stomping because you want the left and right. The left and right bilateral movement will pull you out of your reptilian brain and help you regulate. I love that stomping. I love ripping up magazines. Just I have that vision of that client one time who did that for, I don't know, I bet she ripped up magazines for 2 straight hours in
Yeah,
our office
you're
one
right.
time. And it was so great and cathartic for her. I'm a big whole body type of movement, obviously, because I talk with my hands. So throwing eggs, I'm pretty famous for saying go buy. I know eggs are really expensive and dear right now, so sorry, but go buy cheap eggs and throw them at a tree in the backyard. And all of the critters then have lunch and dinner and breakfast, throwing balls,
Yeah.
swinging bats at the batting cage, not around the house,
Yeah.
not chasing the person who hurt you, doing things that get your whole body
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah. And as women, I also think a lot about the fact that our hips are our center of gravity and really position us beautifully to pivot in whichever direction we need to turn. One of my favorite interventions a colleague taught me is pool noodles. You know, you buy the great big long pool noodles at like the dollar store, you can thwack them up against something that does not damage. There's no harm. It doesn't risk hurting or harming anything. And the sound is really cathartic as well.
I love that. Screaming in the car. I used
Yep.
to go and turn the music up and scream in the car.
Yep.
Certainly, music for me early on was very telling about how I was feeling about things. And so there were some good old heavy metal bands that I grew up with that I sang to a lot when I was wanting to discharge some of that toxic energy as well.
These are all catalysts, right? One of my favorite exercises is intuitive painting. For example, one of my mentors and trainers, she went through COVID doing intuitive painting, and she went out and bought a big canvas and a whole bunch of paints, and she'd wake up in the morning and she'd throw a bunch of paint on the canvas, depending on what she felt like doing with a brush or with, splattering or this color, this layer, that layer, and then she'd let it dry and she'd come back a day or two later and she'd put another layer on, and then she'd come back another couple days and put another layer on. She took pictures of it along the way, but it was non-verbal, non-cognitive. It didn't involve a lot of her body, but it totally tapped into her right brain, her creative and intuitive energy. And it was really a very special project for her.
Wow. I'd
Yeah.
like to see that.
Yeah. I once filled a whole page of a journal with the F word. It was me articulating an internal emotion and getting it externalized in a way that didn't land anywhere that it would do harm.
I think it needs to be followed up with self-compassion.
Hmm.
Like anytime you are feeling really angry and you express it, if you can remember to then come in and comfort yourself with self-compassion, with an active imagination of hugging yourself and actually feeling yourself giving yourself the hug and receiving the hug, getting that active imagination going about, hey, we have a lot of reasons to be angry.
Yeah.
In the beginning of therapy for a betrayed partner, male or female, when you do therapy, and this is one of those unexpected triggers, it can make you angrier.
Mm-hmm.
You're finally being seen and heard.
Yeah.
I remember our original men's group and our original women's groups, and the original men would always say that Tuesdays were such a hard day
Right.
because their wives would go in the morning to group and then we would see the men at night. And the women would either be processing anger or feeling emotionally spent after doing the hard work that they did in group. That can be an unexpected trigger. I'm sure that you do it. I know we do it when we do a consultation with people. We always say at the end, hey, you're going to feel a little tender after today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially in situations where someone may be brand new to letting oftentimes a stranger into a really intimate innermost part of their story. It's a learning curve and a process to be sure.
Can you think of other things that you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's one more on my mind, and that is the triggers inherent in joy
Mm,
and happiness and hope. I think it can take on a lot of different dimensions. I remember after losing some of the children I loved from my marriage and divorce, spending time with my family of origin, the family I still had,
mhm,
brought up so much sadness in me. And I didn't understand it. It made no logical sense. Here I was with people who still loved me, who were still here and present in my life. But again, it highlighted the loss of something I had loved and lost. And then as we come back online during post traumatic growth or that reconnection to life after trauma, when we start to feel happy again, we can be terrified of losing it. We
It's
can be
very risky.
scared to believe it, scared to trust it, scared to want it.
Mhm. Scared to feel it.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. That's really important.
And that's probably a conversation all to itself.
It is. Let's put a pin in that one because I think it's so important. I thought about drinking
Mm.
alcohol, how alcohol can be such a trigger. Either the betrayed over drinking and losing control,
Not gonna lie, you and I laugh sometimes over how often our mutual clients start out a story with, so we'd had a few to drink. You can kind of predict that it's not going to be a great story when
Mhm.
it begins that way.
But I really wanted to talk about the unfaithful over drinking
Hmm.
and how triggering that can be.
Hmm.
Because oftentimes drugs and alcohol and sexual acting out go hand in hand, but also seeing the person whose behavior has been out of control, being out of control is terrifying and triggering.
Even flirting with the potential that that could happen feels like unnecessary risk. It can
Mhm.
feel like a threat. It can feel irresponsible.
Mhm. Mhm. And irresponsibility, seeing the partner acting irresponsibly. If I had to say my number one unexpected trigger for my journey, it was that. And
Mm.
boy, it happened a lot. If you think about, okay, here is the person that I chose to rely on, to companion me through life, to collaborate with, and they are making a choice that's not in the best interest of me or us or them, that could really, really trigger me on a level that it took me a long time to understand where that depth of sadness came from. And it was about trust, but it was also about really needing, like, if you're going to show up for this game, if you're going to be all in, right? That means every arena of your life and being fiscally responsible, socially responsible, all of those things go into it.
Yeah. Medically responsible, vocationally responsible.
Yes. The other things were phone, like
Mm.
the
Mm-hmm.
being in public with them,
Hmm.
getting back together after separation.
Oh, yeah, huge. Let's start with phones. So one of the ones we hear all the time is cell phones, right? They're these mini little computers that access the whole world around us, and we carry them in our purses or our pockets. And how often the habits that we have about our phones provide opportunities for things to go sideways. So one of the things we teach our unfaithful clients when they are learning to restore and rebuild trust is keep your phone up at all times. Make sure your partner has the unlock codes and the access to whatever they may want or need to see on your device. Is, yeah, face up. Exactly. Because why in the world would you even maintain a habit that cultivates the illusion or the impression of hiding and secrecy? It is unnecessary. And again, we're looking for the ways that we can reduce the unnecessary triggers attached to all of this stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Similarly, a computer that's facing a wall versus facing the middle of a room. Position your laptop in such a way as it doesn't look like you're hiding something behind your screen.
Yes. Having no phone zones.
Hmm.
It's very triggering to watch the unfaithful go in the bathroom with their phone. So having no phone zones and also no phone times
Hmm.
so that you can learn to be present for each other in a way that you might not have been before or for a while.
Hmm.
What about being in public? I'm going to tell a story. James and I were spending little bits of time together. We were not living together. We were fighting for our marriage. We were doing couples counseling together. We had individual therapists. We were making it up as we went. And I think on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we set aside several hours each afternoon to spend some time with each other. And so one of those days was rolling around, and James said, "Let's go for a walk on the beach." And I was like, "Let's go for a walk on the beach." I said, "Can we go to the private beach where we have to pay to park?" Because I knew the beach could be a huge trigger. We don't need to see bikini clad women all over the place. So, yes. So we go, there's not a car in the lot. We go, we walk on the beach, we walk beyond these rocks, and there is a topless woman. Now, bless his heart, he knew. He knew the protocol. He immediately, I mean, it was as if somebody grabbed his head and whoo, turned it sideways. He was looking at the ocean so hard, and he walked that way.
Mhm.
He grabbed my hand. "I'm here. I'm not looking." And we walked as fast as we could. I remember saying to him, "I hate you so much right now." And he said, "I understand why you would say that." Hello! What a great response. "I understand why you would say that." I'm like, "You've even ruined walking on the beach for me." And he was like, "Okay, now what are we going to do?" And I said, "We're going to keep walking." Because our goal was to spend time in nature, this beautiful beach, and we're going to do it. We got to the place where we knew we were going to turn around. We both took big, deep breaths. He was like, "Are you okay?" Like he turned me toward him. We looked at each other in the eyes. "We can do this."
Mhm.
And we walked back. Luckily, she was gone on the way back, so he didn't have to do the walking with my head turned funny walk. But being in public with your man can be very triggering.
And it really is a situation where there are so many things outside of your control. You can do everything possible, like in your story, to construct an environment that is as safe as possible, and there are still going to be unexpected factors that come into play. What I love so much about that story is the ownership piece. That's what we often see missing in situations where someone attempts to express empathy and care for their partner who might be suffering or struggling through a trigger, but misses that component of "I'm the one who put us in this situation where you're having to deal with this in the first place, and I am so sorry for that."
That's
Right?
right.
Yeah.
He was very, very good at that after a certain point. That was something he really learned well. And it was so important for me to feel his hand when I glanced over and saw him looking off the other way. All of that made it bearable, and we got through it. And sometimes that's the best that can happen is you got through it.
Well, and I would say I think it would have been completely understandable, and again from that posture of self-compassion, if you had had any other kind of reaction as well. What a gift to be at a point and in a moment of grace in your journey where you were able to handle it the way that you did, both of you.
Well, saying "I hate you" is not a very nice thing, but he knew that it was right on the cusp of "I love you, but I hate you in this moment. I hate you."
And I
Um,
think about how you may have acted contrary to your value of not hating someone you care about, but you were simultaneously honoring a value of authenticity, of being true to yourself and telling the truth. And that's one thing Sarah Morales taught me years ago was it's okay to prioritize honoring one of our core values at the expense of another one that doesn't take priority in that moment.
mhm, mhm. Very well said. Shout out to Sarah Morales Coaching
.com.
um, .com. If you want to learn about gaslighting, that is the place to go. And we're going to have her on with us at some point. So you can look forward to that. She's always so much fun. I think that brings us to the end of this very practical, oriented. Let us give you some tried and true methods. Let us throw some caution flags for you, and here are some things that you can do.
Always, if we missed anything that's a big deal in your life that you would like to hear us address in terms of those unexpected triggers and some creative strategies to approach them, let us know what they are and we can revisit it.
Yes. So, like us if you like us. Please feel free to comment. You can email us at askthebetrayed@gmail.com. Know that we cannot do therapy via email, but we will read absolutely everything that you send to us. And next week, make sure that you watch whatever episode of Ask the Unfaithful that James and Sam are going to drop. Thank you.
Bye-bye.